Welcome back to Paella Week. We've done the traditional Valenciana, we've learned how to batch cook a sofrito that's extremely flavoursome, we've made a wonderful, wonderful seafood paella on the stove for one person. Today, I thought we'll do a vegetarian version with one of my favourite ingredients, king oyster mushroom, and some leeks. Just 2 ingredients, and through this process, I want to show you how much flavours you could build. Now, first, we deal with the presentation pieces, completely optional. While we heat up the pan, we slice some king oysters in half. Now, previously I said the best way to do it is to do it on the edge. I was wrong. The absolute best way, if you have a sharp knife, is for it to be cap side down, this way. It's almost impossible for you to damage the cap, and you go from the top. This requires a very, very sharp knife. Perfect caps. And you want to have long movements to slice it. Almost perfect cap. And once again, the optional scoring. This actually adds a bit of texture because you're, in essence, increasing the surface area that's going to be able to brown, to caramelize, to enjoy the Maillard reaction, to give us more flavor. Once the pan is relatively hot, olive oil. And like we said before, to have a decent chance for a socarrat, you need at least 1 thin layer of oil that coats the whole pan so that the rice could have equal opportunity burning / browning. So once this is ready, it goes scored side down to start cooking. And we score the rest. So what's going to happen here is because the mushrooms are full of water content, through heat, the water content first needs to be evaporated. Once that's done, then they can start to caramelize, to brown, to build flavors. And we're gonna use the exact same 2 ingredients for a very simple sofrito that is going to be extremely flavorsome. Remember, for paella, you're supposed to only just add water. You don't need a vegetable stock for this. Now, we deal with the presentation pieces for the leeks. You want to remove the tough outer leaves, of course. For this recipe, the leeks are mainly there to provide the sweetness, sugar content, once again, for the Maillard reaction. So, for the presentation piece, we're going to have very thick medallions. And if they're curling up, just press them down to maximize the surface area that's in contact with the hot pan. While that's searing, we prepare the leek and the mushrooms for our sofrito. It looks like a lot, but they're going to shrink down dramatically once you've evaporated the water. Now, same with the mushroom. This time we just dice them. The beauty of chopping them at the same time is the moisture from the leek will prevent the mushroom from bouncing around your chopping board. So this dish is meant to be. All right, brilliant. Now we check on the mushrooms. Beautiful. And we just cook the other side briefly. Fish out the beautifully burnt leeks. Fish out our mushrooms. Now, to mop up all those flavors, our 2 ingredients sofrito, they go in. It looks like a lot, but trust me, in about 8 minutes, you're gonna worry that we don't have enough vegetables. Now, we season with salt, and this will also help the mushroom and the leek release their moisture. Of course, if you want, you can add the paprika, the saffron, anything you fancy. And now we build flavor. First, through evaporation of the water content, then through the Maillard reaction, courtesy of the sugar content of the leek. You see, the steam coming out, that's the water content evaporating, and you can see once the water has started to leave, how much shrinkage there is already. And before we add the water, we want this thing to be properly browned. You should not be able to see the white color from the mushroom or the green color from the leek. If the bottom is starting to catch, you just add the world's smallest dash of water to quickly deglass that. And you're good to go again. And this, again, is full of flavor. This once again shows us that paella pans are not designed for even heating for the home kitchen. Brilliant. This is a wonderful method to make French onion soup faster, by the way. Because we didn't pre-make this sofrito like the previous recipes, to build flavor, this will take a while. by a while, I mean up to 20 minutes of careful mothering. So this is a labor of love. Now, as promised, the mushroom is no longer white, the leek is no longer green. We are ready to add our water to build the flavoursome cooking liquid for the paella. So, previously, we've always been saying 3:1 is the ideal ratio. But today, I want to show you how to make this in the oven. For the purists out there, this is no longer a paella, but a baked rice in a paella pan. For this reason, because of the dry air of the oven, I would change the ratio to 3.5:1 to factor in the evaporation in the oven. Once again, we mop up all the beautiful fond, the burn bits. Bring this back to a boil. Once this is boiling, we add our rice. You can be slightly more generous than the stovetop method because this will cook from both directions. Once again, we shake our pan to evenly distribute the rice, and we add our presentation pieces. And this is now ready for the oven. So, for this to go into the oven, in the most ideal world, you have a pizza setting. That's easy. Max out the pizza setting, and this goes in. If you don't, most conventional ovens would at least have a top and down heating function. Use that, maxed out the heat. Now, it's very important that this goes into the bottom of the oven, not the bottom shelf, the actual bottom of the oven. It's going to be very hot, so be extremely careful, and this will cook in about 20 minutes, but moderate, so be very careful not to burn yourself. And I'll see you in 20 minutes. All right, after about half an hour, it looks ready-ish. So we check on our wonderful, wonderful paella. Be extremely, extremely careful at this point, by the way. If you're not confident, switch off the oven, open it, give it about 5-10 minutes to rest, and then you can take it out. Looks very promising. And even the handles are really hot by this point. It looks beautiful though, huh? As I've explained in some of my other recipes, that in the oven, things cook from outside in. So, if you worry about the middle, you can check on it and give it about 1 to 2 minutes on the stove. In our case, it looks great. Once again, we tilt the pan just to make sure there's no residual liquid. Wonderful. So now, we simply let this rest for about 5 minutes and we'll come back and see how we've done. All right, after 5 minutes, the moment of truth. By the way, the success or failure of a paella should be judged on whether it's tasty, not whether you have the ability to burn rice to the right degree. You're not a Japanese rice cooker. I'm showing you this to tell you that even with my own recipes, I have varying degrees of success. Sometimes I get nothing, sometimes I burn my rice. And that's the fun part of the paella, that you don't always get it, but not the fundamental part. On that note, let's find out. You know the sides will be crispy and burned because it's the oven, but the question is whether we have what color we get this time. It's sticking to the bottom, so that's always a good sign. Golden, crispy. Look at this. Oh. Yeah, the middle is never going to be as crispy as the rest because it cooks from outside in. But I mean, I'm pretty happy with that. This is oven baked king oyster mushroom and leek paella. I really, really hope you enjoy. Oh, looks so good though, huh?